What is up, everybody? I'm here today to talk to you about a nifty little Druid unique called Storm's Companion. Now, chances are good, if you ever found one of these and went online to say, what do I do with this? You were told, throw it in the dumpster. It's trash, wolves are trash, give up the dream. But I am here today to tell you that's not actually true. Now, I'm not going to try and persuade you that Druid Wolves are about to become the new meta, though there's a chance they will for boss killing next season. But what I am here to say is that just because something isn't optimal doesn't mean it's not viable, and it can actually be very, very good and a lot of fun to play, which is the point of the game to begin with. So with this build around Storm's Companion, what does it do? Well, it kills bosses quickly. You can kill up through Uber Duriel without even attacking. You can just let the wolves do it for you. They'll do it quicker than you would ever expect. It can also run nightmare dungeons. This is a big common concern about Druid Wolves, is that they're too squishy, they get blown up. You can push nightmare dungeons up to about 80 and clear them. It won't be that pretty. Around nightmare dungeon 60 though, you can just speed run them. You can walk behind your wolves, they'll hold aggro, they'll kill everything, and it's an absolute breeze. You're probably not going to clear Nightmare 100, but that's okay. That's not the agenda everyone has, and like I said, this is a great bossing build. A few things I want to point out right away with the chaos happening on the screen. Right now I'm not doing anything, and neither is the Seneschal, right? I took the Governing Stones out. The Seneschal is doing nothing. This is just to show what the wolves can do, and then I can show you how to actually, insert some stones here and get more value from this build in Season 3. But the reason I'm showing this is because I think it's going to be a lot better in Season 4. If you note from the patch notes, and there's going to be a huge buff to companion damage for druids. So it could be 3x, it could be 4x. The numbers we're going to see now are nothing compared to what we're going to see, which is why I think this is going to get increasingly good. So in this current setup, we're also using Pain Gorgers and X-Falls. The reason for that is Storm's Companion is going to allow us to get these Pain Gorger nodes, right? So they're marked, and we hit everyone when we throw a basic at them. And their spreading of rabies from Aspect of the Alpha is actually going to generate X-Falls procs as well. This is a good setup for Nightmare Dungeons to help with clear speed, but if you only have Storm's Companion, it's really all you need. I'm going to swap the gloves and X-Falls out. And then so we can see the damage a little bit better, we're just going to go to a single training dummy because this is a lot of visual clutter. So this is a boss dummy, and the first thing you'll see right away is that with me doing nothing, these passive attacks from the wolves are hitting 70, 80, 90, 100k. One of the key things we do in this build is we take the aspect of the Wild Rage. This allows our companions to get the bonuses from the Bestial Rampage key passive, which are 30% increased attack speed after we've been a wolf for a couple seconds, and a 50% damage multiplier when we've been a bear for a couple seconds. So, as I'm minding my own business, I'm just going to pop first my Blood Hell, and you can see that pop up down here. They got their buff, and then Debilitating Roar. Now they got this buff. Suddenly, these passive attacks, and they're doing them pretty quickly, are between 120 to 200,000 damage just at a time, right? And a lot of builds, that's a decent crit if you have high attack speed. In this case, that's just what they're doing for fun, not critting. And when they do crit, like you just saw, it can go upwards of 500,000, maybe capping around 600,000. That's just the passive attack. Now, the active attack is much bigger. It's pretty impossible to see the damage numbers unless I slow it down, but I can tell you what they do. When they crit, each wolf is doing something like 1.5 million damage, if not a little bit more. So if all three were to crit, this 10 or 11 second cooldown basic becomes a 5 million damage attack. Even when it doesn't crit, the three wolves combined are going to give you over 1 million damage. So this is going to work really, really well. Between their little passive hits, which are still huge, and the active ability, they are doing a ton of damage. I also want to point out, this is not optimized right now. For example, on my amulet, I do not have ranks of companion skills. I could get another 3 ranks to my wolves, which would multiply this damage out pretty significantly. It would do quite a bit for us. On the chest, you can get rank or companion damage bonus. I don't have that. The aspects I'm using to make this work are not max rolls, and I don't have crit everywhere I can get it on my gear, and wolves do inherit your crit damage, so they could do much, much more, right? And this is also just a test of the wolves, so this isn't using a core skill. Like you could use Shred, and then you could use Shepherd's Aspect, and you could have all kinds of other ways to make this interesting. But these wolves are doing a ton of damage, and it's not the most they can do. And as I said, Season 4, we're going to see huge buffs to the wolf damage. I would not be surprised if these active crits could go up to 20 or more million damage once those changes take place. So these passives could be, 750,000 on their own, and they happen quickly, and we keep buffing their attack speed with our Blood Hell and in a few other ways that we'll talk about in a second. Alright, so we will link the entire build planner down below if that's something that you're interested in seeing. However, I'm also going to talk through it just really quickly here. Let's put our full setup back on with the Pain Gorgers and the X-Falls. Alright, so we're only using a basic skill, and we're using all 4 defensives. This helps with certain squishiness in Nightmare Dungeons, but because we're using our basic and we're using it for a few different reasons, it has utility. We're definitely taking the aspect of might, right? The 20% DR does apply to our wolves. Damage reduction does apply to companions. So this is how we start the process of making them not horribly squishy when we get into those mid to high tier Nightmare Dungeons. On the chest piece, right now I have Juggernauts, and that's just because I didn't have armor cap as I was trying to push Nightmare Dungeon 80+. I actually would recommend Cyclonic Force on the chest. I think it's the best thing you can do. Cyclonic Force gives your Cyclone armor to companions and nearby allies, right? It doesn't say companions in the tooltip, but it does in fact do it. So you can get 10 to 15% more DR, physical and non-physical, for the wolves. This also helps them survive while they run around and blow up mobs. These gloves, like I said, it's a min roll, but these are Pain Gorgers, and I'm putting these on to show you they work actually very well in Nightmare Dungeons. These circles above the heads means these enemies are marked. And what Pain Gorgers does means when they get marked, I can throw a basic at one of them, and it will hit all of them, right? So this allows us to clear out mobs much better. This is one of the advantages of combining Storm's Companion with Aspect of the Alpha, is that these wolves are going to actually mark people for Pain Gorgers in 2 different ways. Their lightning attacks will do it, and so will their spreading of rabies. So this gives us a lot of utility, and it keeps us on the trend of using our basic. Storm's Companion, the much maligned unique that we built this entire thing around, is actually better than you're being told. First of all, max life roll is never bad, and 10%, or it's over 10 if you get the max. DR is very handy, and it's flat damage reduction, so it applies to everything. Companion movement speed is significant because these guys will run through dungeons with me, if not faster, and hold aggro, clearing things out in front of me all the time. And then most importantly, 7 ranks of wolves. This is so much damage, right? Because every new rank is the beginning of the formula, and we just get a lot more damage. It's one of the ways we get up to these levels. Also, the actual aspect, wolf companions are infused with the power of the storm, dealing lightning damage and gaining the storm howl ability. What this allows us to do is take advantage of other things, such as the overload boon in our druid tree, right? So now, when we get a lucky hit and we deal lightning damage, it has up to a 40% chance to emit a static discharge and deal damage to surrounding enemies, which continues to proc our Pain Gorgers, and as you can see, it's happening a lot, right? So that's actually very useful. The Storm Howl ability itself, there's a lot of confusion about what it is. It's the lightning strikes that they call down. Every, 15 or 20 seconds, they bring them down. They do a decent amount of damage. They crit often, and those crits are helpful, and they give us more procs of that boon. Now, the Hectic on the boots. Hectic is critical here because as we're just casting basic skills, what we're going to do is keep resetting our cooldowns, which will allow us to get our shouts back, which will allow us to keep buffing the wolves using Bestial Rampage, right? And it also will allow us to reset our wolf attack. And we have Earthen Bulwark in here just for Unstoppable, but we're going to reset that really constantly too, using this Hectic. Aspect of the Alpha on a 2-handed weapon. I tried this a couple different ways. I tried 2 one-handers for more attack speed because they inherit attack speed. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you just can't replace the damage multiplier that you get from putting your strongest aspect on a 2-hander. Like you can see, this is only a 210% roll. It could be up to 230, which would give much more damage. Like I'm saying, these are good damage numbers, but they are not optimized whatsoever. So we take Aspect of the Alpha on our weapon. Now our second best aspect is Stampede. This gives us the additional wolf, which is already a 50% multiplier because now you have 50% more wolves. And then each of them are also dealing 33% multiplicative more damage. That could go up to 39. Again, we are not optimized, right? But also critically on the amulet, we have 3 ranks of the Call of the Wild passive. This is huge, and when I go into the skill tree, I'll show you exactly what that does, but it's a massive multiplier for us. Then we take the Wild Rage. I touched on this before, but this is why Bestial Rampage works, right? This is how we give them those buffs of move or attack speed and of damage output all the time. And then we have our X-Falls. Everyone's familiar with X-Falls. It's going to basically take these rabies infections and make them pop for big damage that crits a lot, couple 100,000. Now, you actually, like I said, can run this without that, and if you do it, I recommend Edge Masters on the gloves. This gives you multiplicative damage when you have resource. And in this case, we always have resource because we're not spending it. We're just using our basic attack. And then Moonrise. This is the best remaining way to buff yourself and the wolves. So what Moonrise does is when you damage an enemy with a basic skill, it gets you 4% attack speed for 10 seconds. That does translate to the wolves, so they get that attack speed as well. Stacks up to 5 times for a 20% attack speed boost, right? And then when you've done 5 times, you into a Vampiric Blood Rage, and you get a multiplicative on your basic skill damage. So that looks like this. 3, 4, and 5. Now we're in a Blood Rage, right? And look at the attack speed the wolves have just picked up from doing that. They just start attacking much, much faster with their passives. And if they do those big swooping attacks, you'll see whole screen explosions a lot of the time. So, on to the actual skill tree. We'll come back. I'm not going to go through the whole Paragon, but we will touch it. Like I said, I'll post the entire build plan if anyone is interested. We did max our Wind Shear because it's the only thing worth doing. I did experiment with Storm Strike. At the end of the day, the best part about this build is you get to sit back while your wolves just stay very aggressively forward. And so, we want to use Wind Shear. We can stay back. It's going to give us movement speed. It also applies some vulnerable. A lot of good things happening there. And I just took the points to get as much damage as I could, especially in that Blood Rage and the multiplier. We're 3 out of 3 in Predatory Instinct. We're just trying to get as many crits as we can. And we're also going to take Digitigrade Gate. This is the movement speed for being a werewolf. Stays for 3 seconds after. The thing with Blood Howl is it resets constantly, not only because of Hectic, but because you get a second back on the cooldown for every kill. So in Dungeon, it's always up. So this is pretty much always up, because you have 3 seconds after you leave that form, and it's just great. Earth and Bulwark is just here for a source of Unstoppable. We don't have one. I considered using the Metamorphosis boots. At the end of the day, though, I couldn't find a reason to get rid of Hectic in place of that, and so, yeah, we just keep Earth and Bulwark on the tree. Cyclone Armor, both of these last nodes are good. Also for late Nightmare Dungeon pushers, I would recommend busting this up to 5 points to make sure that you get as much DR as you can. This is the usual choice. In this case, I just wanted more ways to apply Vulnerable, and so I went with the Vulnerable node. On Blood Howl, we're going to take the attack speed option. That goes straight to our wolves. They attack faster. It's great. Debilitating Roar also got some extra points put into it because we need to get that cooldown as low as we possibly can, because it only lasts 15 seconds. The Bestial Rampage buff lasts 15 seconds, so we need this up basically every 15 seconds. We use it on cooldown. We get our wolves their damage boost back, and we're also taking the slowing effect. This is great if you run in front of them and do a crowded room in a dungeon. You pop it, slows everyone down, it debuffs their damage, and now your wolves go in with a 50% damage multiplier. Right now, we have 16 out of 5 ranks of wolves. This is from Storm's Companion. This is from ranks of wolves on our helmet. And so that's how we got here. Like I said, I could get 3 more ranks off of the amulet with a better roll, so these numbers could go up. But you can see in the tooltip, they're already significantly large. These wolves do a lot of damage. At rank 19, I can't even imagine what those numbers might look like. But I think these, we'd probably be seeing crits well over 2 million. Per wolf, and possibly up to 6 or 7 combined from the 3 wolves. They also are going to get a damage multiplier when enemies are immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned. They're always poisoned because of aspect of the alpha and some things we can do with the Seneschal, but that is not necessary because this build will work even better in Season 4 without the Seneschal. And then when we crit, our wolves are going to get 25% attack speed for 3 seconds. This is great because those passive knocks are doing a couple 100,000 damage. Let's do it more often. Put 3 out of 3 into Nature's Reach. It's another damage multiplier if enemies are distant. This works with the wolves when we stay back and just throw our Wind Shears. So it's very nice. And then we max Call the Wild passive. This is what I was showing on the amulet. We got plus 3 ranks. We're getting a 10% damage multiplier every single rank of this. So we have 6 ranks and it's another 60x bonus on the wolves. Now, these nodes we can take because they make unique use of the Storm's Companion pants. So this one we don't care about that much. As you up level it, it just increases the vulnerable duration, and we already can apply vulnerable in a few different ways. But we'll take 1 point into elemental exposure, 1 point into charged atmosphere for some extra lightning bolts, because why not? 3 out of 3 into electric shock. We want lucky hits. Dealing lightning has a 24% chance to immobilize enemies. Immobilizing is good. Like we said, our wolves are going to get a multiplier if they are immobilized. And up to a 30% chance when dealing damage to vulnerable, immobilized, or stunned enemies that a lightning bolt also hits. And then all of this comes back to those lightning surges we get from our boon in the Druid tree. Down here, classic, most builds run this. We put a point in neurotoxin, everything is CC'd, so 8% slow when they're poisoned, and then we get this big Envenom boost. Envenom is critical. Ranks of Envenom is also a very great thing to roll on an amulet if you can get it. But this is a 30x multiplier on crit damage against poisoned enemies, which is all of them. We take nothing in this tree, and then we come down and take our Bestial Rampage key passive. So Werewolf for 2 seconds, 30% attack speed. Werebear for 2 seconds, 50x increased damage for 15 seconds. And then we tie that one more time over to our companions. And we can do that easily, by the way. You can see how long it takes, right? I pop it, and then you look at the buffs down here above the toolbar. Boom, it's up. Pop the other one. Boom, it's up. In a dungeon, you just circle around for a second while that goes on. Not going to go through the entire Paragon, but I will show you some of the things that make it click, right? We take the exploit glyph. A lot of builds use the exploit glyph. It's very, very good. And this is the most important one, right? This is wild. So every 5 intelligence, we boost our companion skill damage. Right now it's at 203. And this is only a level 15 glyph right now, right? So, I mean, this is not optimized. Like I've said, like you can make this so much stronger if you pursue it. But the extra perk from this glyph, the passive portion of companion skills deal 120x increased damage. That's why they're sitting there smacking people around for 200,000 damage while doing nothing. We have really easy access to the heightened malice node, so there's always 3 or more poison enemies nearby, buffs our damage. We take electrocution, right? And this is because lightning bolts, dancing bolts, they deal more damage, which we do get those from some of those passive nodes. But more specifically, once someone gets hit by one, we have a 20x multiplier against them for 5 seconds. When we come over here, we're taking the Keeper Glyph. You and your companions deal 10x increased non-physical damage. That works for the rabies, it works for the lightning. So it's just a nice multiplier for us to have. And then Fulminate, we deal 12x increased lightning damage to healthy and injured enemies. This is good against bosses and getting that initial damage in and finishing them off. And in, you know, like overworld stuff, you'll hit them once and they're dead, so they're always healthy when you hit them. It's actually a better buff than it seems like. And so, yeah, it's just good to have. We got Tectonic. Tectonic is giving us, we don't care about the Earth skill part of it, we just want to activate it for a 20% lucky hit chance. We have a lot of lucky hit procs in our build, including the X-Falls, etc. And so we want this as often as we can get it. And lastly, we take Spirit. It's a classic. When you do a crit, you get a 2x multiplier for 20 seconds, stacks up to 12x against that specific enemy. This is a great boss-killing glyph. And then the last thing I was going to show you is the Seneschal and how to actually get use out of the Seneschal. In this scenario, I was using Tempest with Safeguard, Electrocution, and Duration. And then Lightning Bolt with Arcing, Multi-Shot, and Poison. And we can sit here, buff our wolves, and just watch all hell break loose on everything around us. It's just chaos. The actual damage numbers, this is why I showed the single boss. You see a lot of small numbers, those are ticks from poison. But we saw the big ones before. Guys, I'm telling you, Storm's Companion is not bad. Wolves are completely viable, and in Season 4, they are about to go crazy. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be doing more builds around unloved uniques to show that there's probably a reason they exist in the game if you just care enough to figure it out. If you enjoy the video, leave me a comment. Let me know. Let me know what uniques you want to see someone try to work with. Make it as weird as you want, and I'll give it a shot. And of course, like and, you know, subscribe if you're into the content, and hopefully I'll see you back. Thanks for watching.